Well, this whole thing is a misunderstanding. He said that he was annoyed, didn't want to go out. So I told him, well, I'll please your wife for Valentine's Day. And then Mark Emmert was furious. I don't understand what happened.
David, we're on the air.
What? Oh, well, okay. Make sure that didn't go out, did it?
Sure. No, sure. Of course.
Okay.
Not.
Yeah. Well,
this is
I
our
don't understand why it's a legal
show,
matter.
HD. David, are you in the puppet bunker yet?
No, we're not doing that this year. Remember, I said that we weren't doing it. No, what? No, Chat. What's the countdown to the
45 minutes?
We're not doing that this year. Remember,
I'm your host, Chad Sherwood, joined by down there John Salika, Joby Fortson, Matt Zakowski. Unfortunately, I think David Griggs is with us, as you all know already.
Yep, I'm here.
This is our bracket rundown show where what we do is put together a bracket of what we feel, where we feel the field is as of the beginning of play tonight.
Yeah.
Let me do a couple caveats here. First of all, what happened is all five of us submitted our current top 50 teams in the nation. I cross-country scored it, went ahead and ranked everybody based on where we had the consensus would be, created a bracket. I added in the auto bids at the end of it as well. Based on just my own personal opinion, so screw you all. And now we're going to go ahead and reveal that bracket. But Joby, we've had a little bit of action tonight that kind of just screwed up everything.
Well, first of all, if you were an undefeated team in a conference, it's not been a good night for you. Florida Gulf Coast is not exactly what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the American, the Cincinnati Bearcats going down. But, okay, it's a tale of two conferences. The American did themselves really well tonight. Houston, beat Cincinnati. I think a lot of people would say, okay, Houston, you're in this field because of that win. That they were right on the bubble. This is probably the sort of win that gets them in. Temple showed well, actually led by double figures at half over Wichita State. Temple is still alive and with a shot for making this field. The bubble for the American did well. Let's turn to the other coin, which is the Big Ten. Big Ten, this is not what you want to do. Their leader loses to a Wisconsin team that got drilled out of conference repeatedly. Or their second-place team. Their leader right now is losing their second game to Penn State. As much as some might want to promote Penn State, I think this really hurts the top of the Big Ten's credibility. And in so doing, hurts a team like Michigan. Michigan's not way inside the bubble probably as we'll have tonight. And all of a sudden, Michigan, with their wins not looking quite as good, could all of a sudden, and with their out-of-conference wins being UCLA and Texas, two teams sinking down the bracket page, could be winding up with a less impressive resume than otherwise would be. American, good night. Big Ten. If this Ohio State-Penn State game holds, bad night.
Yeah, and what we're going to do is we reveal these teams, again, because these are where the bracket says entering play, we'll discuss what we think is going to happen because of some of these results. We are recording this around 9:45 on Thursday evening, so other games coming up tonight that may affect things include this Arizona State game that's going on right now, as well as a few other games out of the Pac-12, a few others. I think Middle Tennessee did win tonight, so.
Yeah, they were having a sweat. Western Kentucky is sweating right now too. Western Kentucky probably not in the field, but we'll see.
Well, here is the bracket, and let's start with the number one team overall. And I don't think it's going to be a shock to anybody. The Virginia Cavaliers, and Joby, I know they're your team, but Matt, how good is this Virginia team at this point?
Really good. I finally got to watch them play against a good Miami team, and for about 35 minutes, Miami had no answer. And this is a team somewhere that's like a 7 to 9 seed level team, and they just on their home court, Virginia dominated them.
Yeah, I'm going to go right on because that's pretty much a consensus pick at this point, especially in light of what Villanova did this week.
Leave the room. Why didn't you? Oh, wait, we're not doing that. I thought we were going to make Joby leave the room. Never mind.
Okay. Okay. Salika, your Xavier Musketeers coming in at number 2 overall in our consensus bracket here. This was not unanimous, but I do agree with it. What are your feelings on Xavier now, the second best team according to the 5 of us on the consensus at least?
I was not one of those people that would have agreed because I still think Villanova, even with the loss last night, still has a slightly better profile than Xavier right now. But if the Musketeers are able to hold serve at home against Nova on Saturday, that's going to change.
Great.
John, sometimes I wonder if you've watched Xavier this year. They're really good.
Well, let me pull it up here. Let me pull up some team sheets. I've got Villanova there on the right. Let me switch this over to Xavier here on the left-hand side. And David, why do you have Xavier better than? Why do you think they're better than Villanova now?
Well, partly it's just I know that they have the loss at Villanova, but again, it was at Villanova. But Jesus, I mean, look at all this work at Creighton, at Seton Hall, at Butler, the Johnnies who are coming on strong. Marquette. Does anybody else, including Virginia, and maybe if anybody does, it is Virginia, have that many quadrant run true road wins? They've been destroying the planet. And then it's just like, I mean, that's incredible.
They're Kansas, but they actually can win at home.
Yeah. And part of it, and I hate to say eye test, but they look amazing. They're incredible.
Well, there's your answer. It's a better team because they are incredible.
Yes.
No surprise here, Joby. Villanova is still number 3, despite the 2 losses in the recent weeks.
Yeah. The loss of Booth is an issue for them, and also gives them the nod. I mean, I had Villanova number 2, but it's a coin flip between them, and it will be sorted out this weekend. The winner will be the number 2 team. Then the loser might still be number 3 because I think there is a gap between these top 3 and number 4, especially if it's a close game. But, hey, no complaints. You know, X and Villanova are interchangeable at this point to me.
I don't really think there is a gap. I think it's more like there's a crevice or a cavern between these 3 and the next team.
Yeah, and Matt, as far as that 4th team, it was a little bit tough to decide. There was kind of all over the place on this team. The consensus pick, which ended up being the right pick based on what happened earlier tonight, ended up being the current Big 12 leaders here, Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
good job, committee.
Actually, I had Purdue up all the way at number 3 on mine. I had a Nova before tonight, but man, losing to Wisconsin, that should knock you down about 5 seed lines this year.
But good job, committee. The real committee did not favor Texas Tech. They had them 10th. I don't understand how, other than that maybe just subconsciously it's Texas Tech. But they absolutely deserve it. Look at their profile. Look at them play. Is it this week they have Kansas? I mean, if they win that game and they get a 2-game lead on Kansas, of course they should be number 1.
And if the committee values Oklahoma like they do, they have to value that win that Texas Tech had against the Sooners.
Yeah.
And not till next weekend for that Kansas game.
I'm sorry, yeah.
But you look at just a ton of wins and, not much on the bad side at all.
Yeah, this where if they go 4-1 down the stretch, which probably what they're favored to do, I think, according to the computers. If they do that, that's 9 quadrant wins. That's the one where they might be lacking a little bit, at least at the top line, with only 5 of them. But if they go 4-1, even 3-2, that fills out their quadrant 1 wins, and I think that might be able to boost them up to a 1 seed.
Let's take a look at number 5 overall. Also, maybe not a surprise based on the fact that this was voted before we did the show, but there they are in the Midwest region, Purdue. How far, Matt, you think they should fall 5 seed lines? Joby, how far did they really fall?
I think they fall to the back of the 2s. Okay. I'll reference it from time to time tonight. As you know, the nitty-gritty actually had Purdue as 8 overall entering tonight. They'll fall probably further tonight after that, losing to a poor Wisconsin team. But I think 8 after the loss is about where they probably belong.
Yeah. It puts me taking off my all teams that wear red are evil goggles. I'd agree with Joby about the back of the 2 line.
Up here on the 2 line, though,
Well,
solidly.
how do you? I mean, how can you have Purdue ahead of Nebraska at this point? I don't understand. When you have
This was before tonight's loss, David. This was before.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You're lucky they barely beat Maryland, because otherwise we'd be talking about them in the Big Ten's troubles.
It's part of the dark web.
Right. Stalika, number 6 overall was Auburn. They get the South Region and Nashville, a very favorable spot for the best team in the SEC.
Yep, and they looked pretty good against Kentucky midweek, so things are shaping up for them to come out as regular season champ in the SEC at the current pace they're playing.
All right. Well, let's take a look at number 6. Hold on a second. I got a little computer problem here. I think we got the number 17 coming up. There's such a message coming up on my screen. There you go, David. The number 17. Oh,
yes! Great pick. Great pick right there.
Wait. What's going on?
That
we
is.
Can't play a game on the 2 line, can we?
What? No, that's just a playing game for the 2 line. I mean, again, you can do that. There's no rule. Show me where it says 2 line, no playing game. It's a great pick. Good job, committee. And it was a committee decision. That's what I am most amazed by there.
David, how many times did I tell you to leave the computer alone?
I didn't touch it. I didn't. What?
I'm taking that down. Now, wait. What are you doing, David? David, what are you doing?
I'm not. Don't worry about
it. I give up.
Chad's buzzer is broken.
Now, listen, it's the number 2 team is Kansas, not Nebraska, not Missouri, Kansas. But Matt, how about seriously about the Jayhawks here?
Man, they're a hard team to, I think, evaluated that their profile could almost be on the 1 line. Team-wise, I see they're almost like a 4 or 5 just if I'm watching them and don't know anything else about what they've done this year. And I think this is kind of an in-between. I had them personally, I think, 9th. Okay, so I guess I had them at the top of my 3 line. I thought I might even have had them a little lower. But it's 1. Bottom of the 2, top of the 3s, probably where they should be given the complete profile of metrics, results, eye test, anything. Like the whole formula, the whole combination. 7's about right, probably. Anywhere 7 to 9, 7 to 10.
All those quadrant 1 wins on the road, and Joby, all those home losses.
Yeah, I mean, well, we were taught, like I called it. It's like when David said, "Has anyone got the same resume that Xavier does on road quadrant 1 wins?" I go, "Yeah, there it is." But the Musketeers haven't had the problems at home or in state, as it were, a la the Washington game that the Jayhawks have.
And the way Xavier's playing, they're not going to have a loss as bad unless they were to lose to a St. John's or a DePaul in the Big East
I don't
tournament.
think St. John's is as bad.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, the number 8 team here is the Duke Blue Devils. I'm not that sold on this. And Matt,
I'm not either.
Let me pull up the team sheet here. Duke, you look at that Kansas team sheet first, which I'm now going to switch over to the Duke team sheet and kind of see look what happens to quadrant 1. It's gone.
This is the opposite, where I still generally like their team. Snide remark I made in our email aside, but I still generally like their team. Their resume a little lacking on some of those Florida State Florida. Don't tell me what the RPI is. Florida, that's a neutral court win over Florida is a quadrant 1 win or a top level win for me.
Florida's so schizophrenic. Come on.
Yeah.
But by the way, my ballot showed you I still value Florida a fair amount. So.
Joe, you're our SEC guy. Where do you feel on Duke? Do you think they are a 2 seed right now?
Yeah, I had them as the last 2 seed, and I probably have them above Purdue right now. It is very eye testy. I know that everybody hates that, but they do have the ability to explode, and they have a resume within range. their resume probably is a early 3 seed. As a matter of fact, that's what the committee's talking about. I still think, though, that they have the chance and the talent. I wouldn't want to play them in March over some of the team. There's not a team that we will say after this point in time that I would be more fearful of than Duke.
I disagree with you. And it's a team that I just put up on the right side there. David, North Carolina, playing incredibly well right now and has all those quadrant 1 wins, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, on paper, North Carolina clearly better. They did get the win against Duke, albeit at home. They do have some head-scratching losses, well, one in particular, but still, Duke has them too. The losses at Georgia Tech and at Boston College. So, I agree with you as far as who I like better between the two.
And to be fair to Carolina, they did make up for one of those head-scratchers.
Yeah.
Well, coming in at number 9 overall is that North Carolina team we just discussed. But beyond them,
whoa, wait.
You want to discuss them more?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was just wondering if they could go in the West because to play Duke. Well, I just had an interesting fact about Duke and North Carolina, but maybe
okay.
Well, they never played in the NCAA tournament, but I guess the bracketing rule.
There was actually some region balance issues that ended up with, for example, you see the number 10 overall team, Michigan State, getting shipped out to the West as opposed to the East. The South, which would have been a little bit closer for them. And also I think the other 2 teams on this line have come in, but Michigan State there on the 3 line, and this was a team that we discussed a lot during the HoopsHD report this week. Also, as a team that the committee put down here on the 3 line. We put here on the 3 line, and is the number 1 team in the nation according to one of the polls. I mean, what do you do with that?
Well, you just accept the fact that the voters are wrong and move on.
And remember, it's the coaches' poll, so it's not even the coaches; it's the SIDs.
So
the AP poll is 2, though, Joby.
Front of the jersey crowd.
Matthew, next up was Cincinnati, a team that also suffered a loss tonight. So let's start with that first question: is losing the game at Houston? How far does that knock this team down?
I'd probably knock them down to the top of the 4 line. Because I was at Tennessee and Clemson were my next 2 teams on the list. I actually had Cincy exactly 11th before tonight. I'd probably knock them down to the top of the 4 line now. And knowing that if they lose to anyone else in the American not named Wichita State, I would knock them off the protected seed groupings.
Well, 2 of the remaining games are against a team named Wichita State, so they're
good there, but say wherever the heck they're playing the conference tournament this year in that league, wherever they're doing that, if they lose there.
Yeah, if they sprinted out to a big lead in that game too. I mean, it looked like they were going to roll over them, and they've been playing really well. My biggest complaint about Cincinnati is just the lack of notable wins, and that's as much, if not more, circumstance than it is them dodging them. But they have some decent ones, but none against anyone that's solidly in the field. And this was their chance to kind of get one on the road against, a bubblish type team, and they came up short. And now I'm just asking, how good is this Cincinnati team really? The real committee liked them a lot. You all seem to like them more than I do. I had them as a protected seed, but it was either 15th or 16th. So I had them. Yeah.
Yeah, David, this is a team that we're going to find out both this weekend with the Wichita State game and March 4th, the trip to Wichita. I mean, they have those 2 chances there to nail down a protected seed if they sweep the Shockers, don't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If they do that, sure. I don't know about the 2 line, but a protected seed, absolutely.
Let's finish off our 3 line here.
I stand corrected. Yes, they nailed down the 2 line. They're already on the 2 line. The committee already put them there. So yeah.
Tennessee coming in on the 3 line here to finish things off. The Volunteers. This is a team that just surprised me all season and just keeps finding ways to win games.
Yeah, well, they didn't find a way to win the one Saturday, but aside from that, it's like they saved up all their crap. They just been building it up and then dumped it all over the place in one game. Better to do it in one game than to spread it out over several, though.
Starting off the four line is the Clemson Tigers there. Coming off of the game they had last night against Florida State and just fell apart in.
It was a bit of a tough loss, and also one of their players had what looked like a concussion towards the end of overtime after he got an inadvertent elbow from a Florida State player. So hopefully he's going to be doing better.
Yes, it's their starting point guard.
The starting point guard. Yeah. Have we heard anything about his condition? Anyone?
I have not. I meant to look today, but I didn't see.
I think that was also their first loss since Dante Grantham actually left the lineup. But they're going to have a pretty big test at home on Sunday against Duke, so we'll be able to see if that game at Florida State was just a blip on the radar or whether that's just going to become a trend as they start to get towards the beginning of March.
Yeah, I mean, even if they lost to Duke, I wouldn't hold it too much against them even at home. But, I'd say more, especially if they lost to teams like Florida State at that level at home. That's why I really might look at, okay, this might be some trouble.
Right. Number 14 overall, second team on the four line. Joby, for the moment, and for a very short moment, is Ohio State. So let's ask the question again. They are, as we record this, about to go final in a couple minutes here for a blowout loss on the road to Penn State. So what happens?
It's an awful loss. I don't care. Penn State's not a good team. Sorry, they're not. Just because you rack up some wins in the Big Ten, which is weak this year, doesn't mean to me. Penn State has 2 wins this year, 2 wins of note this year, and they're both over Ohio State. Now, Ohio State's still in this field, but this knocks them down at least a line. And we'll see if it's multiple lines because there's a lot of hungry teams, from your Gonzagas of the world, that are chomping the bit to move up into this spot. Gonzaga, West Virginia, if Oklahoma ever gets their stuff together. I mean, there's a lot of teams that, are right there. And Ohio State's giving away some important spots.
I think it was last year, the 16-17 season when Penn State won the Big Ten, but Ohio State got the playoff bid. Penn State has just not forgotten that.
Of all the teams that did lose tonight, one team that is not in the process of losing up, almost doubling up Loyola Marymount at halftime as we record this, is Gonzaga, who the
good job committee. Like that pick too, yeah.
I think that's a real solid pick, though. I think I agree with you. I mean, this team is. I don't know that this team's going to lose again. Before the NCAA tournament.
Right, they may not. Really playing well. Paper not quite there, but I think that's, again, this is a team that's much better than their paper. They went into St. Mary's, who is good, and just blew them out of the place. It was remarkable. I went to make a drink, and by the time I had sat down, the game was already over.
I mean, I don't think that their paper isn't maybe spectacular, but it's not bad. They have wins over, St. Mary's definitely a tournament team away from home. Ohio State, definitely a tournament team away from home. Texas, probably, at least at this moment, still a tournament team. And at least will probably be under consideration the entire process away from home.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm just saying I think they're even better than their paper.
Oh, no, I'm probably with you at this point. And, it would stun me if, they deserve a 3. I think the real committee, the 4, might be a ceiling for them. But, I'd hate to be the one that would see them as a 4 in my region.
The last of ourselves are.
Don't be the last. Don't be the last number 1.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be out west, and they will be the 4 seed out west. So if they're 4, assuming they're 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, tough for Texas Tech there in a potential regional semifinal, but West Virginia coming in, Joby, there as the final 4 seed with a potential regional semifinal game against your Hoos. I don't want to see that.
That's fine. Seen them before. Lost in Morgantown. Let's bring it on a neutral court. And they're not playing as well as they were in the beginning of the year either. But they still have a very nice resume. They've actually, if you pull it up, they've actually beaten an abnormal number of teams that we will see in this field for a four seed. They've actually put together – they've had some losses lately, and that has really dampened the spirits of what was once a 1 or a 2-seeded team. But they still, over the season, have collected a beautiful number of wonderful wins that you can – because look at even in Quadrant 2. We're going to talk about Baylor. We're going to talk about Texas. We're going to talk about Kansas State. Won't talk about the other two probably. But that is a solid group. Then you get some more recent losses culminating in Oklahoma State this past week.
Joby is quite the wordsmith tonight. Just beautiful, wonderful wins on Texas Tech. Loving the adjectives. The same are used to describe me and my wisdom.
We're going to go a complete line at a time from here on out. So let's pull up the entire 5 line. David, here they are. Both Arizona schools, along with Oklahoma and Rhode Island, coming in there. As we record this, the 2 Arizona schools playing head-to-head and a 1-point game at the half, by the way.
Yeah, fun game to watch right now. Let's see. Rhodey, again, just continuing. I don't know what – they're one of those teams that's kind of hard to see just because you know they're good. You can tell they're good. There's evidence of it. But at the same time, when 90% of your games – in conference are against teams that'll miss the NIT, how strong are you really? I don't think it's quite as Memphis used to be in the Josh Pastner days when they were in Conference USA, but it's kind of that same thing. They're not even beating NIT teams from night to night, but still really good.
This is a big weekend in that, maybe not as much for Rhode Island, though this is their chance to go undefeated. You plow through even a down A-10 undefeated, that's saying something. It means you're not messing up. And
right.
Their test is this weekend. And people like Lenardi are actually talking about the Bonnies. I don't know if we'll be talking about them. Well, Bonnies are going to be pulling out all the stops this weekend. We're going to find out a lot about both teams' futures, I think, in that game.
Yeah, it won't be easy, but I like this Rhodey team. This is actually higher than I had them, though, so you all must like them. I think I had them on the 6th line, but they're really good.
If there's one matchup I like among the 4-5s, it's probably going to be West Virginia and Arizona. I believe that would be the first time Bob Huggins and Sean Miller would have met since the Sweet 16 game 10 years ago that Xavier beat West Virginia.
And I just kind of already revealed them there. There's our 6 seeds, both Florida schools, Florida and Florida State, along with Texas A&M and Wichita State. And, Matt, I want to ask you about 2 of the teams in this line because one team that you had ranked higher than anybody else was Florida State and lower than anybody else was Texas A&M.
Florida State, I think, just nice, like a very solid overall, a good group of wins, good in the metrics. I think just a pretty good team on the court. I like them. Like I said, I had them as a 5 seed. A&M, on the other hand, it's been a weird season. I can see their profile is actually pretty strong. I don't love them as a team. They're weird. Like, they're a team that would have been great about 20 years ago when you played a little bit different style of basketball. And now, too, like, I think only having 2 scholarship guards for probably the rest of this year is not a recipe, I think, for long-term success. One of those, a freshman who wasn't even in the rotation for at least a part of the season.
Well, David, let me ask you first about that Florida State team. You had them ranked lowest of anybody. You wouldn't have them near this line.
Right. I mean, I just kind of look at what they've done, and it just seems a little bit – I mean, the win at Clemson the other night was pretty good, but, they're kind of injured. North Carolina, Florida's schizophrenic, Vatek's a bubble team. I'm just not as – I just didn't really like them as much on the court. I mean, the profile's there, at least if you look at the quadrant run wins, but look at some of what they've lost too. I mean, I guess, losing Boston College, Wake Forest, Okie State, who, to be fair, might be sneaking their way in. I think that there's just other teams that I liked a little bit more than them.
Well, Joby, let me ask you about the A&M side of things because you had A&M up even higher than that. And I would have agreed with you, but go ahead.
I love A&M's profile in a lot of ways. That LSU loss at home, notwithstanding. But all those quadrant 1 losses, it's like, Kansas at Tennessee versus Arizona, Kentucky on the road, Missouri on the road, Alabama. You got to go, okay, that happens. The old expression, shit happens and happens. But on the positive side, the at Auburn is looking really good, solid 2 seed right now. West Virginia on a neutral court is outstanding, especially at that point in time, because that, even though it was the first game of the year, we then saw West Virginia go on this run to be, a top 3 or 4 team. This is a good resume. I ranked them a little higher than this paper. I think this paper is about where we have them, a 6. I ranked them as a 5, and the reason why is because they've had people in and out of the lineup, in and out of the lineup, in and out of the lineup. I'm kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt with that out of the lineup because the slump has happened with Williams out and some other folks I think are key. Matt's point is well taken, though, that if the guard play completely tails off, it'll be shown on the court. If it doesn't show on the court, then 5 is, and upwards is certainly where they could wind up.
Let me go ahead and also show the 7 line here. And there they come, St. Mary's, Seton Hall, Creighton, and Alabama. And Sleek, I want to start with you on the St. Mary's team. You had them ranked several lines higher than this, and I want to find out why.
It's not so much because of what St. Mary's has done, but I'm also starting to wonder about some of the teams below them because Wichita State, they did end up holding on to beat Temple after making a furious comeback. And then teams like Florida and Alabama, which I believe have already been mentioned, they're kind of schizophrenic, whereas St. Mary's, even without the lack of quality wins, they've been the most consistent among the bunch.
Joby, would you like to respond? Because you had them at 37th overall.
Yeah, I had them very low. I mean, in the field, solidly. But, I had them as a 9 or a 10. And the reason why is, yes, they improved their non-conference strength of schedule a little bit since past years. But they only have 2 wins against tournament teams if you include New Mexico State as such. And then their losses, Gonzaga, hey, we have them as a protected seat. But Georgia's not looking so good right now, and Washington State's god-awful. They're an awful basketball team. And when you have so few chances, you're not allowed many slip-ups. They've slipped up, and it was out of conference. They haven't slipped up in conference yet. But those out-of-conference slip-ups pile up. They needed to beat Georgia. They probably can be excused of 1, but getting 2, and they really needed Georgia to perform better in the SEC than they have. And Georgia is a below-average SEC team, and what is a strong SEC, but they're on the bottom end of the bottom half of the SEC, not the top half. This isn't losing to Tennessee. This isn't losing to Kentucky or Missouri.
David, any other thoughts on these other 3 teams here, Seton Hall, Creighton, Alabama?
I had Seton Hall a little higher, but I like Creighton and Alabama, at least for now, where they are. As Seton Hall is one of the teams I had of Florida State.
Well, let's go right on to the 8 line here. And we see here Butler, Michigan, Kentucky, and Missouri. And Matt, what about this Butler team? I think you had them a couple lines
I thought
better.
Missouri was already in.
Hey, they're getting an old Big 12 rival there in the second round. That's
not a rivalry.
I had Butler up as my second 7 seed, so a little bit higher. And I was really pounding that bandwagon until they had an ugly loss the other night to Georgetown. That I was trying to think how far I could slip them, but then at some point you'd have like Wichita and St. Mary's who have paper tigerish resumes. And then other ones like TCU, who I kind of like as a team but has some warts, and they didn't even make this line. So I don't buy like split like 7 or an 18 is not at least not a huge difference other than you've got a little tougher second round game. But it's still a team I like. I could still see them climbing a couple of lines because I don't think these teams on the 6 and 7 line are really solid there.
Well, Slika, you're our other Big East guy, and amazingly, you had Butler lowest of anybody while Matt had them highest. So you want to respond to him?
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder about Butler because it's one thing when you're losing to Xavier and Nova, but quite another for Georgetown because that was their first tricky loss, and now they're at a point where they have to beat Providence and Creighton at home at a minimum. And now the games at St. John's and Seton Hall are looking a lot trickier.
It would stun me if they swept the table there, actually.
I'll be honest, I'm much more skeptical of Seton Hall being a seed higher right now than Butler, given the way that the Pirates have played of late.
Butler's lost 3 in a row also, though. So,
What about Kentucky? Can we talk about them real quick?
Yeah.
Because I think that we have them in the right place, but you've heard a few pundits, especially like if you've been to Kentucky recently, about how they may not even make the field. I think that is ludicrous. They've lost 4 in a row, but none of them were particularly awful losses.
I agree with you. I mean, that profile, especially with that West Virginia win, is as good as anybody else we're looking at in this range here. And yeah, I think it's ludicrous to say this team is not going to make the field at the moment. But they're no longer a protected seed. They're no longer a 2 seed that Kentucky fans think they should be at the minimum every year. So
Right,
of
yeah.
course, it's the end of the world.
Hey, well, the last time they were on the 8 line, they were the national runners-up. So.
And this was pretty consistent. I mean, I think we all had them right around this area. There was not a big discrepancy between the 5 of us on Kentucky.
Yeah.
There was pretty big discrepancies on the 9 line, though. As we could see a few potential first-round matchups as well here. Butler versus Miami, Michigan versus Nevada, Kentucky, TCU, Missouri, Providence. And David, I got to start with you on this Nevada team. You had them 24th overall. What are you smoking?
Lots of stuff, but that has nothing to do with why I had them 24th. I mean, the polls have them 24th, and I realize that isn't a lot, but
so you go by the polls now.
It depends. It depends on who's ranked where. It depends. I subjectively decide whether or not to implement them.
Your other go-to road at neutral would have been a much better argument, I think.
Okay,
That's what
we have them up here.
I'll play that one.
Well, okay. They did beat Rhode. They beat Rhodey, and I realized that it wasn't the full Rhodey team, but we got done talking about how much they like Rhodey. But Boise has been really, really, really good at home this year. I mean, I think that it was just their first or second home loss. I thought that was a monster win, and yeah, I mean, the paper isn't really there, but when you look at just the sheer number of true road games that they have, I think that there's enough decent there to indicate that they're really good. And there haven't really been that many slip-ups. Like 2 of their losses, or like one of their losses was at Texas Tech. We just put them on the 1 line.
Well, Matt, let me ask you about a team comparison that's also on this line. TCU, you had higher than this line, whereas David didn't even think they were close to this line.
Yeah, I like that. West Virginia is a quadrant 2 win. Geez, that's we gotta work on that one a little bit here. But no, they have some decent wins. I like them as a team. That's the one. Even without TCU, TCU, yeah. Yeah, they have the neutral over Nevada too. Who I rate Nevada fairly highly, at least compared to that. And then the win at Baylor. That's a Baylor team I had solidly in my field. Now I guess I've always kind of looked for an excuse to bump Baylor up, but like that, yeah, I like that win a lot. It's a good team. I think 8-9 range is right where they should be. I have them at the top of my 8 line personally.
What about these other 2 teams, Joby? Let me ask you about them. Providence and Miami. Think we got them right where they belong?
I do. That is about where I had them actually. I had Providence looking down as a 9. I had Miami higher by a seed line because I'm not in love with some of the teams. I actually would have Miami higher than, for instance, Michigan and Butler on the hand. And we'll have fun talking about Michigan's profile. I've already referenced it. Yeah, I think it's a lot more bubbly than folks might realize because the number of quality wins they have, despite playing in a Power 5 conference, is low. It is not, and with Texas and UCLA slipping out, if Texas and UCLA slip out, that's huge for them. Look at that. If Texas and UCLA slip out, they've got a nice win at Michigan State. That's it.
Oh, it's more than nice. It's pretty damn good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, St. John's won at Villanova, so we should put them in immediately. Everybody can get one nice win. And I like Michigan's eye better than their paper, but their paper is not that good, actually.
Oh, big test this weekend again with Ohio State at home. That could be another big win. That could
and they can't slip up in Happy Valley or in College Park now.
Nobody can win in Happy Valley. Come on.
Yeah.
And that's going to be an angry Ohio State team
But they
coming
got
into
to.
Chrysler.
Yeah. Michigan
they've
could
got
beat
to.
Ohio State by 20, and they still wouldn't have beaten them by as much as Penn State did. Just saying.
And if
Just
Michigan
saying.
makes a run through those three teams, beating Ohio State at home and then winning 2 road games against NIT level competition, that's solid. That gets them in the field regardless of what happens in the Big Ten tourney. But if they slip up 1 or 2 times and then they lay an egg against a sub 100 RPI team in the Big Ten tourney, don't be – and meanwhile, their wins such as Texas and UCLA don't look as good, and that's out of their control. But if all of a sudden the slippage of Texas continues to where they fall out and UCLA finds themselves on the bad end of this Pac-12 bubble, mass, then all of a sudden, don't be surprised. Michigan's not safe. They are not safe by any stretch.
Let's take a look at the 10 seeds. A few more potential matchups. St. Mary's gets Vatex, Seton Hall gets New Mexico State, Creighton, Arkansas, Alabama, NC State. Matt, your thoughts on these 4 teams?
I personally think NC State's a little high. They're another real tough one to reconcile. They've done a whole lot of good, some ugly. That win against QC, that was actually nice last night. That probably I might not have factored in quite as much as I should have and maybe bumped them up a little more, but still – I had them in my first 4 personally. That's the one.
They got 4 top 20 wins, good top 20 wins.
Yeah, I don't see how you can have them in their first 4. I mean, that is. I think I actually had.
I think it's what I'm not quite sure what they are as a team. Other than I do agree they should be in the tournament, but I don't know much more than. I don't know about Agudu much more than that. That's why I was placing them there. But
and after their win tonight, by the way, UNC Greensboro on the road, their RPI will push them to a Tier 2 loss, deservedly so, because UNC Greensboro is a pretty darn good team. That's going to, in itself, make NC State's resume look better with only one crappy loss, because I don't think UNC Greensboro is a crappy loss. It's 10 times better than Wofford, and that team beat a protected seed on our list.
And Northern Iowa was playing good when they lost to Northern Iowa. So.
Yeah, they were. So, I mean, they beat NC State.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, when we talk about great wins, I'm going to just interject here. We talk about great wins. How is Virginia Tech only a 10? Got to be honest. Yeah, it was the team that I root for that was the victim. But we're talking about great wins. No one has a better win. You beat the number 1 team at their place. There is not a better win in the country this year. Yeah, and they have other.
I guess I had them as I will say I think there is I personally have a little bit of gulf between them and Providence because God, Providence is so schizo. They're I think there's a decent argument for flipping them and Virginia Tech, but.
And my issue with Virginia Tech comes right up here in the blue. 327 non-conference strength of schedule. I mean, look at this garbage that they played here at home. Which all other than the pick game, they chose to play all those games. So that's my problem with Vatek. If they'd scheduled a little bit better, picked up those wins in Tier 3 instead of Tier 4, I would definitely have them 3 or 4 seed lines better. But Stalika, let's go on to the 11 line here. We're getting near the end of the at-large field, not quite yet. And we see there Baylor against Florida State, Middle Tennessee against Florida, K-State, Wichita State, and how about that 6-11 game in Dallas? Can you get a ticket?
Yeah, that's got to suck for Tennessee fans who were supposed to be a protected seed, but Texas and Texas A&M, that's certainly going to be a fun one to match up. And I think it was, 2 years ago where they ended up facing each other in Atlantis. But if you want to talk about other teams that are also going to probably be penalized for non-conference strength of schedules, let's pull up Kansas State's profile right here. I mean, that's about the only thing that's going to be the only thing uglier than the uniforms that they had last night against Oklahoma State.
I would not have Kansas State in because of their schedule and because of those uniforms.
324
That's better than Vatek with 327.
Yes, but Vatek does not have those uniforms.
But if you're going to end up as a bubble team, they're going to be as useless as tits on a bull.
Matt, we just put 3 Big 12 teams in here on this line: K-State, Texas, and Baylor. How about this Baylor team, one of the hottest teams in the nation right now?
I'd always had one eye on because, I mean, they were strong in the metrics, and I thought they were a pretty decent team when I saw them early in the year against Creighton, even in a loss against, I believe they played Xavier, right?
Sort of.
Yeah. No, they weren't like – that was one. They made a decent fight in that game in the second half. I thought this was a decent team. The computer metrics, especially Ken Palm, loved them all year. So I had them, and now, man, they've hit some form. They destroyed Kansas, which as much as Kansas has been a little up and down in that, they haven't gotten blown out too often. And Baylor whooped them.
Yeah, and they did it at home. That's what's more remarkable. I mean, had they done it at Kansas, you kind of overlooked that. But
and then you follow that up by a gutsy win at Texas, where that was one. Especially being a road team, have a couple of things go wrong late in the game. You could easily fold and lost that game. They fought back. What a big one! I think they should be up ahead of Texas. I think in the priority at this point.
Now, if you go back to the Baylor-Xavier game, don't forget that Terry Mason broke his hand in that one and missed a few critical games, including a home loss to Wichita. So some of Baylor's losses.
I think he's their second best, at least their second best scorer. Probably he's not their second best overall player, but he's their second best scorer. So,
well, Baylor through the first weekend in February had only 2 Quadrant 1 or Quadrant 2 wins. Only 2. They have now 5, and some pretty nice with Kansas, as you point out. It's at Oklahoma State is a good win. In Stillwater is a good win. At Texas, and that nail biter that a couple of nights ago was a good win. And we all know what the blowout in Kansas, as Matt describes so well.
Well, and Joby, Baylor's remaining schedule, everybody there is in this field already. So heck of a stretch here that for Baylor to make or break it.
Yeah, and Baylor's out-of-conference strength of schedule is actually a top 300 schedule, which you can't say about Vodtech or K-State.
David, with these 3 Big 12 teams, that's 8 Big 12 teams out of a 10-team conference that we've already put in this field, and we still have 4 at-large spots to go.
Yeah.
I mean, is that insane or what?
It is, but, I mean, well, with the exception of K-State, they all played tough schedules, and they all did really well. So
I'm going to reveal first we've got 4 at-large spots left. Let's reveal one of those first 4 games here. We'll kind of reveal them in order here. Begin with the top 2 are Houston versus Louisville. First of all, Houston probably has moved up out of that game with the win tonight, Matt, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, I had them actually on my 10 line going, and that's a team. I thought their profile was sneaky good even going into tonight, especially for a team out of the American. They had the win over Arkansas out of conference. In that, hey, anytime a team from the American gets a win over a tournament team out of conference, it should be celebrated right now. Really, in that. And no, the metrics have liked them, and I think, now that win over Cincy, I'd argue for them right on the 9-10 line border, personally. I know I'm probably a little higher than the room on that, but
if they're just being Drexel, I keep seeing that Drexel and holding my nose, but
and judging by the way they're playing, I'm holding my nose at Tulane again.
Yeah, but John, let me ask you about Louisville here, because you wouldn't have had them in your field at all, and you've been kind of adamant about that the last week or so.
Well, they did have a nice stretch back in January where they were winning games at Florida State and at Notre Dame, but that also got offset a bit when they're losing at home to Florida State, who's somewhat comfortably in, but Syracuse, a team that is also going to be kind of bubbling. Louisville's schedule is also kind of meh, but nothing spectacular because they have, I think, 3 wins total in quadrants 1 and 2, and that's pretty low if you're a team in the ACC. That being said, they are going to have their opportunities with North Carolina and Virginia coming to the
here's another team with all the rest of their schedules all against teams we've already put in the field here, and 3 of them top 10 teams in RPI. But Joby, your thoughts on this Louisville team? Do they belong in right now?
I have them as my last team in. right now. So, yeah, but where we have them makes a lot of sense to me. And it is. Prove it to me. We're going to know one way or another pretty confidently whether Louisville deserves to be in this field or not. I dare say that if Louisville just even wins 2 of these 5 coming up, they might get in the field because that'll either mean some road wins or some wins against road wins or wins against protected seeds 3 or higher. Or the case of Duke, so they can play themselves in, and it's not a huge stretch. Like I said, 2 of 5 plus no mistakes in the conference tournament against a scrub. They're in.
Yeah, I mean, boys, according to the Ken Pop projections, they're underdogs in all 5 of those games. So technically, any one of those wins would be an upset. I kind of think they're going to get 2 of them. I don't know, I think they've actually shown more mettle this year than I thought, given the circumstances. So I think they'll show enough mettle to squeak a couple of those.
Yeah, I'm liking Houston a little more than the first 4, especially after tonight. But I think we've already covered that. So
David, let me ask you about the final 2 teams that we put in. They're going to show up here in the East region if I did things correctly.
You probably didn't. Maybe
I didn't. There they are: UCLA and Temple.
I like Temple a lot more than this. Now, I think this is about where the committee would have them if they had them in at all. Their record is not really good, and they do have some really bad losses on their profile, but they also have better wins than just looking at the wins. And I know you can't just look at that. You have to look at the overall body of work. But it's better than pretty much everybody else on the bottom half of the bracket. It's better than a lot of the teams on the top half of the bracket. I mean, Auburn is a great win. They've done a lot. Clemson is a really good win.
But you got 6 bad losses. Yes. Not only the Memphis, Tulane, GW at LaSalle, but the losses to Central Florida and Georgia are pretty lousy losses, too, even if they are technically Tier 1.
Yeah, and they have work to do. I think the win tonight would have really helped them. But I don't think it kills them. Even with tonight's loss, I think this is about where they would be. And they're in a stretch now where they've won 8 out of 10 or something like that. If they keep that up, a lot of their games the rest of the way are winnable. If they keep that up and then they don't blow their face off in the conference tournament by losing to someone atrocious, I think that they're going to be okay. And let's talk about UCLA too. It's just, I don't know. I had them a lot higher than this. I think I had them on the 6 or 7 line, actually, or maybe it was the 5 line, because you have to factor in LeVar Ball has left the country. He's in Lithuania, and UCLA played a huge role in making that happen. How can you not reward that?
That's all there is to it. A winner. Just like that.
Congratulations, David. You just won HoopsHD. Okay. But seriously, Joby, what about UCLA?
UCLA is who they are. This is where I would have them. I mean, UCLA I have on the – there is a glob I actually had, and I know this will not hold, of my final 4. I think I had I had Washington out, but the glom of USC, UCLA, Utah should get a mention. There is a lot of Pac-12, and we will definitely see, in my opinion, a Pac-12 team in the first 4. I mean, I just think there's no way to avoid it. UCLA, I like the best out of all of them, but barely to get to the first 4.
You just mentioned that, Joey.
They're unfortunate as they play in the Pac-12, and so they're going to lose to Colorado.
The top 2 teams out there, Joby, by our voting, were Washington and USC, the 2 teams you just mentioned, 2 more Pac-12 teams. I would note that as we record this, Washington is down at home to Utah, which would help Utah. But what about those top 4 teams out? John, let me ask you about them. Washington, USC, below them, Syracuse and Oklahoma State.
Now, first off, isn't it a little bit late for Colorado to be playing non-conference games against the Pac-12?
Oh, my God. Stop it. I didn't.
Matt, let me ask you that question because I got this for sleep.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, it's not so. I wouldn't be shocked if there were 3 teams from the Pac-12 that ended up in the first 4.
I think there'll probably at least be one, maybe a second of those men. Like I would have USC of the ones like I think we put the right one in. I'd have USC the next highest. I'm open. I will say, like looking at it, there's not this field looks starting to solidify more and more. There's not a ton of teams in there that we haven't that I think will fall out, but yeah, no, USC of the group I like. Washington the least. That'll be real interesting. I think you're going to see our committee, the real committee, like the Ken Pond people like myself, will not have Washington anywhere near this field. If you're a KPI person, you're going to have Washington like as a 10 seed, 9 or 10 seed. So that'll be a fascinating debate if they continue on this track.
And the nitty gritty has them as an 11 right now. I had them on my own evaluation out, but my computer program had them as an 11.
Yeah, that's what I think they're going to do kind of what Georgia Tech did last year, which is eventually kind of fade their way out of consideration. And someone posted a score update, they're losing by 8 at home to Washington. That would kind of do that for them.
That will do it. That is the sort of game that will knock them down. They have that great win, basically at Kansas. Let's be blunt here. It was at Kansas. And that's holding up their entire resume. Like I said, when it happened, UCLA and Rupp and Washington versus Kansas has saved this conference. Because had they lost those games, I don't think we're talking about 3 Pac-12 teams, on the potentially for the play-in game, because it gives some credibility out of the conference beyond the Arizona schools.
David, we also see the top teams out. The 9th team out of the 10-team Pac-12 there, Oklahoma State. Just this conference again. I don't know. We've never discussed the 9th out of 10 teams as being right there on the bubble, have we?
Not this late, no. We really haven't. It is kind of remarkable, and depending on how things fall into place, if they get the wins the rest of the way that they need, and they do it against the teams that are sort of in the protected seed range, they could get 9 out of 10, which is crazy to think.
A few more teams that did get one more team that actually got a vote was Penn State. I don't know why, Matt. I threw a few other teams I filled out. Utah, I think, is close, especially if they win this game here at Washington tonight that they're up in. Marquette and Mississippi State still kind of on radar, but
you should credit me for not throwing the Homer team in.
Yeah.
Barely on anybody, I think, at this point, though, Matt.
Well, no, that's one. Hey, win Saturday night. That's win Saturday night and/or win the other 4 games.
Let's go real quick and take a look at some of these matchups here. I'm going to reveal the other 2 12 seeds. First of all, Loyola Chicago would be matching up with Oklahoma and Vermont up there. One of the few remaining teams that are undefeated in their conference going up against Arizona State.
Right. We have issues going on right now. New Mexico State trailing Utah Valley and Montana trailing Eastern Washington. Not a good night for first place team. Anyway.
Right. Well, those games aren't final yet, so we'll see here. Although by the time you're all watching this, they will be live on tape delay. But the 13 seeds here, we've got Louisiana going up against West Virginia, South Dakota State against Clemson, East Tennessee State against Ohio State, and Buffalo against the Zags.
Yeah.
Four real dangerous
teams. A couple upsets there, possibly.
Chad, where's Middle Tennessee?
On the 11 line.
Oh, okay, good. They're on the 11 line. I was going to say.
David, shouldn't you be asking where Nebraska is? I don't even see them.
Where are they? I mean, it disappoints me that this committee is being duped by the dark web.
We haven't revealed the 14 seeds yet.
Oh, yes.
Here's the 14 seed. We've got that Montana team. Bucknell against Tennessee. Rider against North Carolina. And Belmont against Michigan State. No?
No.
The 15 seeds. Auburn matches up with Northern Kentucky. Purdue gets Penn. UCSB against Kansas, and Charleston against Duke.
Duke would be fun.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah.
And last but not least, the 16 seeds, we got Gulf Coast against Virginia, and what should be a real fun game there.
I don't want that game. Hell,
Yeah, quite honestly.
Where else?
Asheville against Texas Tech, and then our first four games: Nicholls State against Pine Bluff, and Wagner against Savannah State.
Save the Tigers.
Let me leave the bracket on the screen. Run through each of you for any other thoughts or comments about what we did tonight, or anything else about college basketball. And Matt, let me start with you.
Yeah, that's the one. I'm looking at a couple of those 4-13 games, and man, Ohio State, East Tennessee State, and Clemson, South Dakota State. When I fill out my bracket, I think I might be looking at the 13 seeds in those games. I think Ohio State is good of a years ahead. They kind of remind me of Louisville a few years ago that lost to the Fareed Morehead State team in the first round. Overachieving their rear end off. Like Holtman, fabulous job. If he holds it together, he might be National Coach of the Year. It's a damn shame that the Big East lost him, but still, I think they're really vulnerable for a first-round upset. And then Clemson, that's one, a team who hasn't been there too much. And then Mike Daum, I really could see South Dakota State winning a game or two in the tourney this year with him. And it might lead TJ Otzelberger up to a higher job up the food chain.
Salika.
Normally, I look at a team like Michigan, and they're 1-3-1 that can cause havoc in early rounds. Unfortunately, when you're facing a team like Xavier that sees the 1-3-1 every day in practice, it's not going to be quite as effective, especially if Xavier is shooting from outside. But I look at some other possible upset specials in round one. Sorry, Kyle Lamb. I do not like Ohio State's chances against East Tennessee here.
Joby.
I'll stick on this 13-4 line with the two others. Not saying that upsets will occur, but we know Buffalo's a good team. Buffalo is giving everybody like Cincinnati good wins, maybe above where they are. But the MAC has always historically been a very strong team. And then Louisiana, ULL, Louisiana Lafayette.
Don't call them that.
They have, they're playing very well in what is a strong mid-major or lower-tier conference. And West Virginia has the ability to beat anybody, a la Virginia, or to really, really get cold. I mean, they can get ice cold from the field and be one of those teams subject to an upset. It would be interesting if Louisiana, and I'd defer to Matt on his knowledge of them on the guard play, but if they have the guard play to hang in there against West Virginia, who knows? That could be the one to watch.
David, before I go to your final thought, I want to just bring up New Mexico State's profile. We really we didn't spend much time on them. And as we record this, that they are in danger of losing at Utah Valley tonight. And so let me ask you this question, though. That you throw in what I guess will be a Tier 2 loss at Utah Valley here. Is this team still going to be within the bubble, or is that they got to whack on them?
I would like to think so. I think they go from being inside the bubble to on it, but I still think that they would end up on the right side of it. I just think that if you lose one conference game and you're the first place team and it's to a team that you also beat, the committee has to look at that and be like, well, yeah, they lost, but they beat them too, and they're the outright first place team by a lot. It certainly doesn't help. I'm not going to say that it dismisses it entirely, but I think that they're still inside the bubble.
And I guess the other thing you got to factor in is that they need an at-large. I mean another bad loss in the conference.
Yeah.
But David, your final thoughts?
Again, I just think that the game that I would look forward to most here is that Texas A&M game in Dallas. I think that it might be the biggest basketball game ever played in the state of Texas. I know the Final Four's in Texas this year. That game would probably be bigger.
You could be right, honestly. That's the funny part about that.
Yeah.
But I guess on that note, on behalf of David Griggs and Joey Fortson, Matt Sikowski, John Stalika, I do want to thank everyone for joining us. You want to look at the final bracket some more, take a look right down below us. But I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Have a great night, everyone.